been lost for a long time, my whole life. And for years I had worked with great teachers, great teachers. I was blessed to meet so many beautiful men and women, yogis, yoginis, priests, nuns, rabbis, imams, and they taught me things. So I understood all the words, and I wasn't able to live them. I was still out of control inside. Still living a life of fakery, pretending to be a holy man, and not understanding that to be a holy man, I had to become a holy man. So I had left a cult that I was living in for 10 or 11 years, and took a significant number of people with me, and didn't take them with me. They chose to leave when I was the first one to have the strength to break away. And the master in that organization turned on me and started telling a lot of lies about me and blaming me for the crash of the temple that he was in, instead of looking at himself. And the first year when I left, I bought my first house, and it was in a very low priced area. I was one of the only white people. There were still white people on my block, firemen, policemen, lots of kids, and a lot of drunks and addicts. And there was a lot of violence, and little by little the neighborhood was going through a change where these white folk were moving out and people of color were moving in. And gangs had moved into the area, and it was becoming more and more dangerous. And it was beautiful, man. I had a porch in the front where I could sit out and say hi to people when they went by. There was a big park at the end of the street, and every Saturday morning a 75-year-old Chinese man would teach us Tai Chi, whoever showed up. A lot like you. And I started my own temple there, giving raw food dinners and counseling people. And although I knew all the words, I wasn't living what I was teaching. And I knew it inside, wordlessly. I was frantic. I was still controlling and lying and manipulating and sexualizing women. And one day a man came out to this new temple, and he stayed through one of my, I don't know whether it was a dinner or a talk or whatever it was. He had a pot belly and no teeth, balding with ponytail, kind of looked like me. And big brown eyes. And after everybody was gone, he stayed. And I was thinking, you know, what do I got to do to get this guy out of here so I can, whatever I wanted to do, watch television or whatever it was. And he came up and he said, can I talk to you for a couple minutes? And I said, sure. And he looked at me and he said, tell me, do you believe in God? And I gave him my God rap, whatever it was that day. Again, thinking, how can I get him out of here, man? And he stood there and he looked at me and he said, I know you're a liar. I know you're full of shit. I know you're screaming for help inside. I know you're tricking these people and manipulating them. And he talked for what seemed to be about 2 hours, telling me every single thing that I didn't want anybody to know. He knew everything about me. And I literally fell down at his feet, sobbing. And he talked and talked and told me how I was manipulating here and using this to make it look like I was this and controlling everybody, and that if I didn't stop, I'd end up being like the cult leader. He told me this stuff without judgment. He was simply stating facts. And he said to me, you can become everything that you've been pretending to be if you're brave enough to go on a journey, where everything that you think you are will be ripped from you. And you'll have to go through hell. The first year will be black, dark, with a few light spots, so you know you're going in the right direction. The second year will be half dark and half light. And the third year, if you stick to it, you may come through. Come through the fire, the pain of becoming authentic. And I asked him a question I have been asking priests and nuns and teachers and psychologists and psychiatrists for 15 years. What do I have to do? And he said, well, you have to love yourself. And every time somebody had started down that road in the past, they would tell me, you have to love yourself before you love anybody else. And I would say, well, I understand that, and I don't love myself, so how do I do that? And they say, well, you know, you have to love yourself. You can't love anybody else before you love yourself. And I would say, you're not hearing me. I get it. I don't know how to do it. And they would say, well, you just love yourself. And then I'd know that they didn't know either, and they read the same books I had read, and I'd move on. So this guy started talking about love and said, you have to love yourself. And I said, all right, how do you do that? And he looked at me, he said, oh, well, it's simple. Now, simple doesn't infer that it's easy. And then he told me about going through a series of steps to become authentic and and I'm thinking, man, he might be full of crap, but at least he seems to be there and he has an answer for me. It's the first person that ever had an answer. And I still hardly had a voice from sobbing, you know, and I looked up at him and I said, who are you? Where did you come from? And he looked down at me and smiled, and he said, well, you called 911. I was the closest one handy. And he turned around and walked out the door.